Good morning and welcome to Felixstowe TV, into our new dungeon, which is way into the basement of the old Co's Outfitters at the bottom of Hamilton Road. So if you're going by, don't, pop in, see what you think. I have with me today, well, let the gentleman introduce himself. Your name, address, date of birth, inside leg measurement, anything.
Goodness me.
Just give a picture of who you are and what is the organisation you've come to talk about this morning.
Well, my name's Adrian Cooper. I've lived in Felixstowe for 52 years, so I kind of know the place. The organisation that I'm representing is Felixstowe's Community Nature Reserve. We're a new organisation. We were founded in about June this year.
Right.
That's when the idea started.
So you're what, 6 months, half a year old already?
That's right. We're a fledgling organisation.
Right.
But the aim, what we're trying to do, quite simply, the overall aim is to try and stop the decline of wildlife populations in Felixstowe. Because myself and others, we are so alarmed about the major decline in wildlife species. And if you look at the RSPB reports, for example, they show that yellow wagtail populations since, I think it's 1995, have declined by 50%.
Right.
Turtle dove populations are also down by a half.
Yeah, I did actually see, when was it? Sometime in the summer, I think, I saw sort of a chart, and it gave a whole stack of decline.
Yes.
But it also gave some actual increases.
There's
And
one
I
percent.
wish I'd kept it, but then we have so much info, we just don't absorb it, do we?
Sure.
But I take your point, and do we actually have from the what is it, PB?
Yeah, RSPB, that's right.
Do we have the reasoning why? I mean, what I've seen since I've lived in Felixstowe is a continual reduction in gardens, particularly front gardens. I notice they're now block paving the front of the property. It's being put down to hard standing. There isn't anything that grows within it, so there is no possibility of wildlife, be it bird, be it insect, be it whatever. There's nothing to eat there. So
Yeah.
one would assume, what's the reason for the decline? Is it the weather we've had? Is it the lack of nesting spaces? Because it struck me we've lost a lot of trees.
There are two major reasons. Number one is habitat destruction.
Right.
Lots of properties have been put up, so we know habitat destruction is going on. But the second reason really is insecticides. Insect populations are being decimated. And of course, when you think, what do birds feed on?
Insects, absolutely.
Also, let's not forget bats. A bat in the summer months has to feed on about 3,000 small insects per night. Now, bat populations are vulnerable anyway for all sorts of reasons. Bats only have one youngster per season. So, but not a lot of people realise how dependent we are upon insects.
Yeah.
So it's habitat populations and it's insecticides.
Just a thought that crossed my brain, and we may well edit it out, who knows. Chairman Mao, back in the good old days.
I know what you're going to say.
I mean,
flies.
he decided that one of the great risks to feeding his population was the activity of bird life.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually encouraged his folk to have weekends of destroying and killing birds, and they used to keep all the sparrows up in the air, etc. So what he did, he very successfully reduced the bird population by a significant amount.
Yes.
What then happened the following season, the insect life ran out of control and actually contaminated and ate much more of the food than the birds ever did. So there is a great need to have a balance.
Absolutely.
Between all levels and all things, and often they come back to a natural balance, don't they? But you've got to give them the environment to live in.
That's true, and I think humankind these days is very good at upsetting that balance.
Well, indeed, sadly, it doesn't have an immediate supposed financial value,
Yes.
or it's undervalued if it does have one.
That's true.
And it's the environment in which we, that's young Paul and I, which is a generation ahead of you, we had a huge amount of wildlife. wildlife, and it was a part of, and it was, you know, hedgehogs and all this sort of thing,
Well,
toads
the
and
same
frogs.
for
It was
me.
all there.
My childhood can be very easily described as spending so much time along Golfer Road.
Oh, right.
A lot of your viewers will remember all
Yes.
the wonderful
Yeah, I love
wildlife,
it.
all the tracks and lanes and streams and brooks between Golfer Road and the Trimleys.
Yeah.
If you add in the Grove, and a lot of your viewers might remember all the wildlife from the Dooley Fort, you remember that? Now sadly gone, of course, but where I fell in love with wildlife was in those places.
Right.
And I felt so enriched and inspired by that. But because wildlife is declining so much, I think grandchildren, nieces and nephews now are in danger of viewing the sighting of a bird or a mammal in a few years' time as a rarity.
Right. So really then, if we are looking at what you're endeavouring to do is to encourage anybody really who has any land or a window box or whatever to plant species appropriate plants, trees, shrubs, to actually enrich the environment in which we create the opportunity for our wildlife to thrive.
That's right. The whole heart of Felixstowe's Community Nature Reserve is about everyday people like us taking responsibility
Right.
and trying to do our little bit to help wildlife. And if you just think, if everybody in Felixstowe allocated 2 or 3 square yards of their back garden or their allotment, that's all you need. And people have often asked me, how big is Felixstowe's Community Nature Reserve going to be? And I say it like this: if you imagine that we wanted to have a collective area equivalent to a football pitch, we can all picture what that is. That's about 5,000 square yards. It would only take 1,666 local people to allocate 3 square yards each of their garden or allotment to achieve about 5,000 square yards. So we could easily get 1 football pitch area.
Right.
If we wanted to have the equivalent to 2 football pitch areas, if we want to get really ambitious, all we'd need is about 3,300 people to each allocate 3 square yards of their garden or allotment to plant these wildlife-friendly plants. So every day on Facebook and elsewhere, we are telling the people of Felixstowe about these plants. And part of the feedback that we're getting is that...
Can I just step back?
Oh,
Sorry.
sure, please do.
You were saying, so you actually have a Facebook
Yes.
identification, you have a website.
We have.
So perhaps we can put those up after this particular interview as
That would be very
a written
helpful.
bit. We can do that, can we? Quite easily.
And
Right.
I'd
Okay.
encourage all your viewers to come and visit the Facebook page
Okay. So your Facebook is updated how often?
pretty much on a daily basis.
Really?
We-
That's dedication.
Well, there's a hunger and an enthusiasm from the
Right.
people of Felixstowe to know more about these plants.
Right.
Part of the feedback that we're getting is that people tell us they had no idea that there were so many wildlife-friendly plants to
Huge.
choose from.
Well, there must be, because it's a massive
Yeah.
collection, and I mean we're very fortunate living in this sort of very strange climate that we have, that we can go from the very tropical to the very cold. You know, from Scotland to the Isles of Scilly, you've got a massive range.
We're so lucky in
Very
this
rich,
country.
very rich. So really, you're looking at flora to support what, the host system, the
That's right.
Right.
Basically, it's plants, and for people with larger gardens, trees as well,
Right.
to attract insects, because insects feed birds
Yeah.
and bats as
bottom
well.
of the oak feed chain.
That's
Yeah,
right.
you've
But
got
we're
to
not
have it.
stopping with plants.
Absolutely not.
Because we're also going to encourage people to create ponds as well. Because they bring so many insects as well. And beyond plants and ponds, we're not going to stop there either, because we're going to encourage people to create insect lodges. Now, people sometimes stop me and say, what is an insect lodge?
Is that like a travel lodge? Is it for insects?
Kind of.
Do they book in? Do they pay? Is it free?
It's all free.
Oh, right.
If you imagine basically a pile of logs with bits of moss stuck in,
Oh yes, I've seen
that's
that.
an insect lodge. Sometimes people call them insect hotels.
Uh.
As long as they're very simple to create, although some of the examples on the internet I've seen are very elaborate indeed. They're works of art. But the point is that insect lodges, we'll call them that, attract insects.
Right.
Bees, butterflies, all the rest, and that is another contribution to wildlife. But we're not even stopping there, because in addition to gardeners and allotment owners, we're encouraging window box owners to tell them that they can do something to help wildlife. And in window boxes, of course, you can plant herbs, crocus, and all the rest of it, snowdrops in a window box, and they too will attract insects, etc. So nobody is excluded from what is possible.
If we go back to the lodge, which I quite like, I think we should.
The insect
We
lodges,
should put
yeah.
put a name on.
Yeah.
There was a deal of damage, I think, done in the Grove after the Friends of the Grove sort of disbanded. And we had a number of trees that came down, and they've been left, haven't they? And they are slowly rotting away, slowly
Yes.
creating
I
a
think I know
very
the ones you're
rich.
talking about.
And I mean, we used to do working parties in the Grove back in the day, and we used to get a lot of guides and scouts who used to come. And we had a primary school teacher who was superbly
Great. That's good to hear.
inspiring to her little pupils, and they used to come along. And the thing they loved best, probably of all that we did, was the feeding of the bonfire to get rid of the rubbish.
Right.
And that at the end of the day we would have. So we used to clear the watercourses, etc.
Yes.
We did a huge amount of work. And
It's great to have youngsters involved.
yeah, well, you've got, because they're tomorrow's guardians, aren't they?
Absolutely
So you've
right.
got to, inculcate that at a very early age. But
Yes.
you need really the primary schools to have enough time to be able to take their students out into. And this lady used to take various classes through the Grove at different times of the year to show them what was actually happening. So there was a lot of planting that went on in the Grove. Now, I don't believe that's continued.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but
No.
I like the idea of youngsters getting involved. And again, thinking about the feedback that we've had so far from people, they often say that when they've been choosing the wildlife-friendly plants that, for their garden, they've been involving the whole family,
Good.
with children as
Yeah.
well. But and I'd like to invite all your viewers that if you'd like to get schools involved in having a wildlife-friendly garden, and to contact us through the Facebook page. But we're also contacting local teenagers, because I think there's a member of Felixstowe TV, Luke, and he is an outstanding young man. He is the editor of the Sixth Form Journal. I think he's going to write an article about us.
Oh, right.
But I've said to Luke, ask your colleagues for ideas about what we can do, because I can guarantee you that the teenage perspective on wildlife friendliness will be different
Yes.
to what I or you or anyone will ever think of.
Well,
So-
at that age group, I think our great excitement with wildlife was that's quite a big group of us on Dartmoor actually rounding up the ponies. So we used to have a rodeo effectively.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that we loved.
That conjures up a picture.
I don't think that's available to you here in Suffolk. You need a big moor, and we did have one. And I mean, I think what we actually had access to and the experience of, and we didn't really value it because we didn't realise that it was unique.
Sometimes you take
What
it for
was-
granted,
we
don't
did-
you?
I mean, we actually created our own swimming pool by going on to Dartmoor, blocking up the river arm, creating a swimming pool
Yes.
for free. Immediately below it was a volcanic outcrop, which we turned into a water slide.
Oh.
And all of that was actually physical work, assistance from, we had a hospital near too, and they actually came and gave us an hand. But that didn't cost the county or the district or whatever any money. But whatever you talk about now, sadly, the first thing they come and say, what does it cost? Not whether it's a good idea or whatever, what it could do, how it would enrich people. It's what's the bottom line, and that's all. Sadly, it would appear we're now at. So I'm really inspired that a member of Joe Public is very concerned about the overall environment, because that's what you're really talking about, aren't you?
Absolutely right. We want to encourage everyone in Felixstowe and the Felixstowe area as well to get involved. But about money, we don't have any money at all.
Did you hear that, folks? So he's joining the rest of us.
We're completely scrapped again. But we don't need it, because we're encouraging everybody to spend just a few pounds at local garden centres. And again, we're supporting a local business there, so it doesn't have to cost very much at all. And we are basically the facilitators of change. We have no plans to apply for any funding at all. I don't know what the future holds for us.
It's actually the biggest thing that you're providing is information.
That's right.
And that's the thing that folk need to have the confidence that they would have a programme. So to that end, you were talking about plants. In that you go and buy a packet of plants and you will get literally hundreds of seeds, won't you?
That's right.
Is anybody looking or come forward to say they'd run a seed bank, or at least a plant bank? Because the reason I raised that, one of our very supportive members, in fact the chair for a number of years, was Tony Cox, and he started a tree nursery on a part of his allotment. Right. And I believe it may still be going, so it might be worth seeing whether that's the case. And some lovely trees, and you know, he just grew them from acorns, from holly, and it's available. And I'm sure on our allotment we do have the possibility of that happening. And of course, the Millennium Wood. I'm not sure what they do about replanting, but there is quite a rich and more enriched bit of woodland that's been created there, what with the replanting we had onto Eastwood O and the Millennium Wood. It would be nice to see that grow.
Yes, that sounds a terrific idea, and I'd like to encourage all your viewers to do that. I'd like to pick up on what you said earlier, that we only provide information.
No, I said that's an important thing that you are.
It is. We do three things. First of all, you're absolutely right, we provide information. But secondly, information on wildlife-friendly plants. But secondly, we try and encourage everyone to take personal responsibility for allocating these 2 to 3 square yards of their garden or allotment. Right. But the third aim, which is the crucial one, don't just talk about it, don't just think about it, go out there, buy the plants and plant them. So we are very action focused. Because there are so many groups that simply monitor the decline of wildlife, and that of course has its place. There are other groups that do various monitoring and all the rest of it, but our environmental education, if you want to think about it in those terms, is very focused on the bottom line, the end result, and the end result is to get people planting, and ideally to involve the whole family in that planting decision.
Okay, now there's an organisation that I heard, and it's sort of a bit below the radar, and I believe they're called Guerrilla Gardening.
Oh yes.
And these folk, or members of it, I think it's rather more an urban setting, but there's no reason why it shouldn't happen in a more rural one. They look at an area that's totally neglected and left.
Yes.
And they will move in as a group and actually turn it into a garden.
That's right.
Things like roundabouts and. So it's sort of, but it's totally unofficial. But they actually make quite a difference to the community in which they live.
Yes.
I don't know whether we've got any guerrilla gardeners in Felixstowe. I don't know whether the elderly amongst us might be putting on sort of combat fatigues and getting out there. But I don't think
and
so.
Camouflage.
Well, the whole bit, they'd have to have the whole bit, wouldn't they?
Yes.
And they'd have to be in disguised. But
right.
they'd be out there. But certainly the Felixstowe Horticultural Society is, it was formed by Mrs. Williams back in, way back now, 1980s or whatever. It's been going a long time.
Right.
And it's a very vibrant group of people.
Yes.
They have their show in the leisure centre every year. And that's a lovely, that'd be an opportunity for you to engage with like-minded people, I'm sure.
I've written to Felixstowe's Horticultural Society, and
right.
I'm sure they're very busy. I haven't had a reply yet, but perhaps through the medium of Felixstowe TV, I'd like to invite all members to become involved because...
Well, I'll introduce you to the chair, and he is a very busy guy because he's into roses in a very, very big way, and he goes all over the country. I'm not sure if he's not now going over Europe, but he is widely travelling. So
let me pick you up on roses, because a lot of people don't realise how wildlife friendly roses are. They only associate roses with beautiful flowers. But do you realise that roses can support communities of up to over 200 different species of insect, of which 44 species of insect only feed on roses. So roses really are very wildlife friendly. That's today's fascinating fact.
What happens if you then, if you want the beauty of the rose and you spend a lot of time on weed killer or whatever insect?
That kind of defeats the object.
Does that defeat it? I mean,
it kind of does, but it's up to individual gardeners. There's always a balance to be struck.
Well,
you're never going to strike the ideal balance, are you?
Well, I always love the ladybird and its milk and the aphids and whatever. So I don't think we've actually sprayed ours in a very long time, or if we have, we use soap.
Sure.
And that's about it. So one would assume that, but there is a conflict of the gardener who wants this pristine rose and it's chemical warfare all around it, isn't it?
It's the balance that has to be struck, isn't it?
Yeah. But I'm very surprised by that number of insects or varieties. I think that's phenomenal.
It is. The more you dig into some of these species, not only roses but trees, they support. Yes, they support hundreds of different species. So you only have to buy one or two of these different species, and you're actually doing a very great deal. It has a multiplier effect.
Absolutely.
And then if your neighbours have the same species, before you know it, you've got a green corridor and a green network as well.
Absolutely.
So I'd encourage all your viewers to tell your friends and neighbours about these ideas, to spread the word, because we're passionate about the simple idea of one shall tell another. And that's the whole idea of a community nature reserve.
Yeah, I like the idea. I do. And
Thank you.
I must admit, and if you're looking for possibly plants for free, you can always ask your neighbour, but equally you could spend some money on a membership of the Felixstowe Horticultural Society. I think they meet every, is it third Tuesday? We'll check on that, but they do meet monthly.
I'm sure they've got a website.
And they do, yes, well there you go. Google it.
Google it. That's always the answer to everything these days.
Now, a couple of things here.
All right.
What we didn't know until we had a little look was that National Tree Week was last week. Really.
Oh, okay.
The Tree Council celebrates its 40th National Tree Week from today.
That's great.
Now that was started from obviously small little beginnings back in 1975.
Right.
So I mean, what would be very interesting would be some more statistics, but there's a list of tree types that they are suggesting.
Yes.
Here on the right. Now, would they have featured on your Facebook page? Or?
Some of them already have.
Yeah.
I think it's today, but we're featuring Rowan, aren't we? And Hawthorn we've featured.
I love Hawthorn.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Holly is in there as well. One of the things that we had a wonderful question. A lady from Felixstowe said through Facebook, is there a dwarf variety of holly? She didn't want to have a huge great holly.
No.
Yes, and the answer, I can tell all your viewers, yes, there is.
Yeah.
And there's a Chinese variety of dwarf holly, but you still get your red berries, you still get your beautiful white flowers, and it still does the wildlife friendly job. So that answers that question.
Just make sure you get the reverse sex for the berries.
Absolutely.
Because that's confusing.
Yes.
I could work that out. But Mother Nature is superb. But I thought that particular, and that was in the East Anglian Daily Times on Saturday. Oh, it was this last Saturday.
Okay,
the bit about National Tree Week.
Well,
get involved.
We're supporting their work and they're supporting our work, so I like that a lot.
That's lovely. Now what they are saying is that on December the 2nd, sadly it's an Essex only place, they are doing a sort of a walk around identifying particular trees and barks by the buds and whatever. Sadly, there's a charge of £30 for the privilege.
Right.
perhaps Suffolk Wildlife could do something similar next year,
That would
and
be
give
good
us a nice
idea.
feed as to how effective National Tree Week has been over 75. We're looking at what, 35 years.
Yes.
Which you were quite a young lad when that kicked off.
Absolutely.
Weren't you? I was
Yeah.
slightly older, wasn't here, but it is a nice thought. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting towards the end of that. But what we would be more than interested in, Adrian, perhaps looking to do in the future, is to actually look around the Felixstowe Peninsula at wild areas that we already have, give advice to you folk out there who perhaps don't want to spend an awful lot of time having a completely manicured garden, but might be prepared to donate a pit of land for a wild garden or a pond. Anything actually that would give our feathered friends and others the opportunity to have an existence at all. So hopefully we're looking perhaps to go and do the Grove. I've invited you to come into Back Lane and look at our wonderful nesting opportunity we've been trying to create for what, 8 or 10 years. One thing we did ask, and it was the ISPB, is what trees and shrubs are best for which particular bird species, and we never really got an answer on that. So I'd be very obliged to have an update on what's best. But thank you very much for coming in.
It's going to be an absolute pleasure.
I hope
Thank
you
so
found that
much.
of interest, and
Most,
you never know,
yes.
there might be a viewer out there who's very keen, and the details to contact
We would
you
do
and your
it.
organisation will be following after this.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.